Good evening. Welcome to the Lowell Planning Board for November 21st, 2011, and happy Thanksgiving to all. Tonight we have 3 public hearings on, one a continuation on Harvard Street, another one for John Street and the Boot Mills, and we have a site plan approval for Lowell General Hospital. Along with that, we have notices from budding towns and ZBA notices, and we have the Patriots on at 8:30. So moving along, the first matter is 65 Harvard Street. This is a continuation that was requested at the last meeting by Attorney Flood on behalf of the applicant, because he requested we have 5 board members present. At the time, we did not. What this matter is for a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Hawkins Real Estate seeking a special permit to reduce the frontage requirement from building lots from 90 feet to 75 feet. The proposed project is located at 65 Harvard Street and includes a subdivision of the existing parcel to create a building lot with 10,758 square feet of land and the construction of a single-family residence on the proposed lot. The subject property is located in the suburban single-family zoning district and requires special permit review from the planning board under section 5.1.17 by the zoning ordinance. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, James Flood, 549 Roger Street, Lowell, Mass., representing Hawkins Real Estate, Inc., the applicant. Can I just pass some things out now, so I won't have to do it later, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, Mr. Flood.
Also with me tonight, I have Mike Hawkins with me tonight, along with Dean Jenkins, who would be the contractor on this project. We are in front of you for special permit under section 5.1.1.7 to subdivide the property at 65 Harvard Street into 2 lots and 1 undersized parcel to be conveyed to the abutter next door. Lot 1, which has the existing building, consists of 11,939 square feet with 85 feet of frontage. And Lot 2, which is the proposed buildable lot, has 10,758 square feet, 75 feet of frontage. And parcel B1 contains 1,450 square feet with an additional 10 feet of frontage. Before I start, I just want this board to know that my client fully understands the concerns expressed by the neighborhood in the past and applauds them for the steps they've taken in order to bring about change in zoning. However, it is our opinion that what we are requesting tonight is in conformance with the new zoning act that was passed. A little bit of history, and I think I gave it to you people before when we were here. Mike Hawkins entered into a purchase and sale agreement with Bridgewell in August of 2011. At that time, the property was zoned TSF, which would require 7,000 square feet and 55 feet of frontage. City Council subsequently changed the zoning to make this property SSF, which required 10,000 square feet and 75 feet of frontage. In addition, they've also established historic designation for the neighborhood, requiring the approval of the development by the Lowell Historic Board. Then in September, in order to address issues raised by A&R plans in the city, they passed a new zoning ordinance pertaining to frontage requirements. They increased the frontage requirement in an SSF zone to 90 feet, with the proviso, however, that the planning board could, by special permit, reduce the frontage requirement by up to 15 feet to the original frontage of 75 feet. It's quite clear to me, anyways, that the new zoning ordinance was not established to stop development, but to ensure that the proposed building conforms with neighborhood character. Just to quote from the city manager's letter to the city council, which was dated August 5th, 2011, the proposal is also designed to ensure fairness for those property owners who acquired their property with the expectation that an additional lot could potentially be created, but would develop it in a manner that is sympathetic to the character of the neighborhood and the interest of the neighborhood. And I think our proposal meets that requirement. We must, however, work, if this is approved, we would then have to work further with the Lowell Historic Board regarding the design and the materials used in the construction of the building. In addition, I feel that our project promotes the vision outlined in the City of Lowell Comprehensive Master Plan. The proposed development conforms with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. Both lots are in excess of 10,000 square feet. The home to be constructed will conform with all other dimensional requirements of the City of Lowell zoning ordinance, and the design and the materials are subject to the approval of the Lowell Historic Boards, which will make sure that it conforms with the neighborhood character. The proposed project will have no negative impact on the environment. It will be tied into City of Lowell water and sewer, and the developer, if approved, the developer will agree to try to retain the trees located on the rear boundary line of the property. It also provides adequate parking as provided in the City of Lowell zoning ordinance with a 2-car garage, and all police and fire and emergency vehicles will have free access to the property. As you can see from the plan that I submitted, the size of our lots and the frontage are greater than many of the lots in the surrounding neighborhood. And when we were here in October, Kendall Wallace, who's in the butter next door, he indicated to this board that he is in favor of it. I did not receive the comments from staff until this afternoon. I guess something got messed up on the email, but none of us received them, but I'd like to go over them now, and then we can discuss them later. I did submit to you, there was an issue about parking on the existing building. That's there, the parking lot exists. I submitted a letter from Lowell House that says that there will be no more than 12 occupants in that building, so there's more than sufficient parking in the lot. Under the zoning ordinance, we required one for every 2 beds, and we have one for every occupant. The plan that I also sent you, I gave you a plan of the proposed house. We didn't put in a curb cut, but as I said previously, the house that will be built would meet with all other dimensional requirements of the City of Lowell zoning ordinance, and that there's a 15-foot dimensional requirement for driveway, which we will meet. We agree with any sidewalk curbing in accordance with the comments. We also agree with number 6. As to number 5, our application was filed, my records indicate that it was filed on September 16th, which was before the approval of the zoning ordinance. We were unaware that the plan should have, would require all of these different things. So I would ask at this time if we could have a waiver of that requirement, and then when we do apply for building permit, or when we come in, if this is approved, we come in with an A&R plan, we can put that information on the plan. So that is our presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions. I don't know. Do you want to speak, Dean? But we'll be glad to answer any questions at any time.
Does anybody else, on behalf of the applicant, want to speak, Mr. Flood, before we turn it over to the public?
I guess Dean Jenkins for Jaco Construction. Mr. Hawkins is developer on this site. I just basically wanted to make myself available to some of the questions that you may have, come back up here just to reintroduce myself from the last time that we had canceled the meeting, so that, but basically, again, I think in looking at this and carefully following what's gone on with the city zoning and changes and so forth, and particularly in that neighborhood, I understand where they're coming from. I do, and I also know that what we're proposing really, it is particularly to the most abutting neighbor. We're trying to be as conscientious as possible, creating a buffer space in between, and also just to clarify one point there, so we can talk about the parking to the other side. The parking shows on a plan. And there may have to be some configuring of the parking spaces within that lot, but that can fit. So to clarify it a little bit, that everything that you're going to build there can fit on that lot. You may have to move some earth around to do it, and you may also use some of the, the paving aspect of this goes in, the whole side yard, and most of that side yard is paved. So we were going to get first the opinion of a parking lot striper to see that you met the criteria of 9-foot by 18-foot spots, that you had the adequate turnaround space and so forth. But we wanted to, on the plan, be able to show that we could meet the 12 spaces. And also in speaking with the people who are purchasing the property, they're thinking that they want to be, obviously, that's the maximum amount of bedrooms that they'd have, but they don't think they're ever going to have that many cars in the parking lot because most of the people that are there, some will not drive. Some don't don't drive and use public transportation. So, but getting back to the zoning aspect of it and the design of the home, we're going to go, if we're successful here today, again, like Attorney Flood said, we have already spent some time speaking with Steve Stoll from the Historic Board to get an idea and an indication of an original plan that he thought would be a good fit. Obviously, there are other members of that board that we're going to have to, convince, and there might be some design changes to that house that will meet that requirement, and we're willing to do that aspect of it. And also, one of the other things that's important to talk about here that isn't on that plan is design review of the landscaping plan. There's a lot of elegantly landscaped homes in that area, and around that, we'd like to. There's some big shrubs, and frankly, we're probably not going to be able to keep those shrubs because they're just too large. That we might try to move them out to the back, but that's kind of hit or miss. Depending on whether we're going to be able to, they'll replant properly in the ground. Obviously this project is probably going to take place in the spring, so we'll give it a shot and we'll see. But the reality of it is that we're committed to creating a landscape design that meets or exceeds, some of the people in the neighborhoods who have really nice landscape lawns. We've talked, Mr. Harkins and I have talked about making sure that the front of the house had instant grass, where we would look to potentially sod the front of that house along with a lot of our landscaping so that the neighbors wouldn't have, an unsightly problem waiting for grass to grow. So there are a number of items that aspect of it doesn't really show up, and we wanted to make sure this board was aware that we fully intended to create something that would work for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone like to speak in favor of this project? In favor? Just come to the microphone, please, and state your name and address for the record, if you would.
Good evening. My name is Rich Maloney, 89 Harvard Street, and my house directly abuts the proposal of that new home. Looking at the design plan that was presented to the neighborhood and to myself, the house itself fits very well with the design they came up with, the roof lines, the setback on the property. They put a lot of thought into what I consider trying to make it match the neighborhood, putting it between two old Victorian homes that have a lot of character. I know that a lot of this has come as a result of the property that was put on the street behind me, which is on Livingston, where a house was squeezed in, and that kind of got this all rolling as far as people being opposed to new things being put into neighborhoods. I've been there just over 10 years. It was my in-laws' home that I purchased from them. They now live behind us in the carriage house. They're in agreement with this project. They've been there for, like I said, 25 years. We've had a group home next to us for as long as I've been there, and probably 5 years prior to that. There's been little issue with the group home that was there prior, but we've had some issues over the years since I've been there. And I think that having a buffer between my property and their property would kind of help us out where we're directly affected by this project. Again, I think it will fit the neighborhood based upon the plans that you see in front of you. I think they've taken a lot into consideration to try and make it work. They had a meeting with the neighborhood to get some input from the neighbors prior to even coming down here, which, opened for discussion, some pros and cons to the whole project. But I don't think a lot of builders go that aspect to get people involved in anything prior to doing it. They just kind of, if it's within the letter of the law, they go and do it, and you deal with it afterwards. They came out ahead of time, spoke to the neighborhood. We hosted a meeting. People came. They got the same plans you see in front of you. They got to speak their piece on both projects, whether it was the house or the group home. We know right now the group home is going to go, that there's nothing that anybody can change. So some that might have been opposed to that originally now come into agreement with it and now are opposed to the home, the new home, I said. So from my viewpoint, I think the buffer that they've allotted us and the house in between the group home will work well for the neighborhood, work well from my vantage point being the direct abutter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Anyone else like to speak in favor of the project?
Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, for the record, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. Excuse me. I'm familiar with that neighborhood. What used to be the Temple Bethel is right next to Harvard Street. It does fit the character of the neighborhood under this proposal, and with it being in the historic district now, in the new historic district, Steve Stowell will be working very closely, as the attorney said, and I think this is a good project. It will add to the tax rolls, and it does fit the neighborhood character. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Anyone else like to speak in favor of the project? Anyone else in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anybody like to speak in opposition? You state your name and address for record, please.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for having us speak here, giving us the privilege to speak. My name's Terry Karangis, and I live at 36 Troy Street. I've lived there for 32 years, and I'm actually pretty close to the property, closer than the abutter, so I do have concerns. We're here because I'm in opposition. I'm here because I'm in opposition for 65 Harvard proposal. And the reason why, number one, the major reason is it doesn't have the zoning. It doesn't have the frontage. You, as a committee, had changed the rules because of the Livingston Ave property. And you, as a committee, had sent out surveys to the neighbors in the area to see how we felt about the frontage and if we wanted it changed or not. And the majority of the neighbors voted, sent you back the surveys, and they said that we'd approve the larger frontage, the 90-foot frontage instead of 75-foot frontage. So now here in front of you, we have the same situation happening, only I'm wondering where you're going to go with this, because you've made the law for a 90-foot frontage. I understand we have the developer here who would like to have a waiver or an adjustment. I'm just wondering how often this is going to happen to the city, and how many times do we as citizens and neighbors have to come forward to you and say, why do we have to change this? Because you asked us, we gave you a survey, the majority said this is what we want, and now we're wondering, where are we going from here? So you have 65 Harvard House. You've got 3 lots, actually, plots in this land. You've got 65 Harvard House, which we know has been a group home. They're requesting that they have 12 parking lots in this facility, 10 along one side and 2 along the carriage house. I'm asking you if you would like to live next to a parking lot. 12 cars. I understand that someone spoke, the developer spoke and said, not everybody's going to have a car, but we don't know that for sure. 12 cars is going to change the character of the environment. It's going to change the character of the neighborhood. So I'm asking you to consider that. 12 cars, and it's going to change the congestion of the neighborhood. Then you have the new house that they want to propose. Again, we don't have the frontage or the footage. They're asking for a waiver. I'm asking you to overlook this and say, no, we can't do this because you don't have the right amount of footage. That house has 2 parking lots. It has a 2-car garage. So now we're talking about more cars. And if you look at the footage, you have a small little buffer zone, like the developer said, from 65 Harvard Street, which I looked on the land. It looks like maybe about 5 feet from where those 10 cars are going to be. And then the new building is going to have their property. So then you're going to have your 2 cars, your 2-car garage. And then you have your 3rd lot, your 10-foot lot that the abutter is asking for. Now, I've heard in conversation that the abutter would like to make this into a driveway. And if that is the case, you know they're going to have to get a permit for a curb cut. So you're going to have your 10-foot lot, a possibly driveway. Then you're going to have your 2-car garage lot with cars. And then you're going to have your 10, 12 cars with a lot. So I'm just talking about cars and congestion here. So there's an issue here. We're talking about issues here with the cars and the congestion. Are we concerned? Yeah, we're concerned as a neighborhood. You are going to change the character of the neighborhood, you're going to diminish the character of the neighborhood, and you're going to change the value of the homes. I've been here for 32 years. I don't want to see it change. The attorney said they're sympathetic to the neighborhood. I don't know if they want to live next to 12 cars. The attorney said, there's no negative impact to the environment. Tonight, he said that. What about the congestion and the changing of the character of the neighborhood? Is that an impact? Okay, we're not talking about the environment, but yes, we're talking about the change of the character. There is a negative impact here. When all said is done, if this is proposed, the neighbors will have to live with the changes if you decide to go ahead with this. I, as a neighbor, will have to live with this, and the neighbors will have to live with this if you decide to approve this. The developer won't, the real estate agent won't, the attorney won't. I will as a neighbor. I've been here for 32 years. I want to stay here. So I'm asking you to oppose the plan. I'm asking you to think about what you're asking, what they are asking, how it's going to have an impact on our properties. So please consider my approval, please consider my consideration. Thank you very much.
Very much. Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
Yes, my name is Glenn Cody. I live at 33 Troy Street. I live just across the street from Terry, who just spoke. There's one thing I just wanted to touch upon, one additional thing. Attorney Flood said there's not going to be any environmental impact to the neighborhood. I don't know what he's exactly talking about. You see, I've had epilepsy since I was 16 years old. That means I have to get a good night's sleep every single night. Not till about 8 o'clock, not till about 9 o'clock, till about 12 o'clock. If I don't, it could turn out to be fatal, because I have ITP as well. Now, I don't know what Attorney Flood is talking about, but that's where it stands right now. I wish you'd consider these things because besides what Terry talked about, I really don't know why this board even exists, basically. I mean, you passed a frontage of 90 feet, now you're saying, oh, let's make it 75. What are you going to say next? Make it 10?
Sir, sir, if I could address your concern. Number one, this board did not pass the zoning. That's done by the city council. We didn't change the zoning at all. We're not allowed to change the zoning in the city.
You can change the frontage.
Planning board, we can only do what the city council gives us the right to do.
Are you allowing to change a frontage?
I don't know. It says it can be, under the zoning rules and regulations, it can be done after a public hearing and after, if it meets the requirements, what was set through by the council. So I'm saying, we don't change the frontage. That's all I'm addressing. Okay?
So you're
City
allowing it.
council changes all the zoning. We cannot even vote on city council. Only thing we can do on a zone change is make a recommendation that's non-binding to the city council. So
Okay.
whoever makes a zone change is the council. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in opposition?
My name is Renee Hill. I'm co-chair of the Highlands Neighborhood Association with Nancy Judge. And I'm here tonight to speak for the residents that are concerned about the quality of life. I should say more the deterioration of quality of life in the neighborhoods. And this is an issue that's been seen over and over again, so I just wanted to address it to the council. I came to Lowell nearly 30 years ago. I did not grow up in Lowell. I came to Lowell for the housing market, and I stayed in Lowell, and I embraced Lowell. And I work in Lowell, and I consider myself a very vested member of the community. I'm here tonight to represent the Highlands residents who have concerns that the city zoning changes accommodate special permits as a norm, not as an exception. And this is what we're seeing as a trend, and it's a concerning trend. It's evident that in the neighborhoods, there's a trend starting in the enforcement of city ordinances as far as relation to living housing standards that have been lowered. And this concern for overcrowding housing conditions that produce more trash, noise, a burden on water and sewer, and city services. So some of these are so overcrowded that the front yards are turned into asphalt parking lots to accommodate more cars. This is a trend that's disturbing to see. Some homeowners seem to buy single-family houses and turn them into boarding houses for the purpose of generating untaxed revenue, and not as a cherished home, family home. It is evident throughout the city, which lowers the possibility of sale for homeowners when they do this. I would like to see the city take action to enforce and maintain the integrity of the city zoning ordinances and laws in order to protect everyone's right to preserving the quality of life in the city of Lowell. In closing, I have lived all over the world. My father was a pilot in the Air Force. We moved every 2 years on the average. As a result, I've lived overseas many times. Whenever I lived, I had to obey the ordinances and the laws of the country in which I lived in. And in those countries, we need to encourage citizens to respect and follow the ordinances and the laws of the city and the state in which they live. In doing so, we will all benefit in maintaining and preserving a quality of life which we all deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am. If you come to the microphone, please, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes. Michelle Todd, 45 Harvard Street. I've lived on Harvard Street about 18 years, about 2 houses down from the big tan house, the 65 Harvard Street. I'd like to just say something about the parking situation. I know that they have spots for 12, and then the lot that the builder is proposing is not very much green next to the parking lot. There are trees there, but he's gonna take those down, like you said. But the size lot that is going to be there, if it's full of cars, there is no way there will be enough room for snow. So the lot can't handle the snow. All of the cars, I think, are going to be in the street. That's going to be a problem. There's a school at the top of the hill that's a Christian academy, or Christian-type school. So we do have a lot of cars coming up and down Harvard Street as it is, dropping children off and picking them up at the end of the day. So if you have the lot full of 12 residents who live in the home, fine, then the overflow is half a dozen and they're on the street. That gives a problem for everybody, traffic-wise, who they go up and down very fast anyway. But just the neighborhood, and too many cars on that street, it's a problem, for snow removal and everybody else. So I'm against the cutting up of the lot. If they need the size lot that they have now for the group home, if that can't be changed, then that can't be changed. I understand that. At least maybe the parking would be spread out a bit so that the snow would stay on their own property, and then the overflow wouldn't be out into the street. That would be a plus for the neighborhood. I mean, if we have to look at that many, maybe they could hide them behind some of the bushes, or make it a little bit more appealing for everybody that's already lived there. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Anybody else want to speak in opposition? In opposition? I'll say a couple. Okay.
Good evening. My name's Jim O'Brien, and I'm a homeowner on Livingston Avenue. Members of the Planning Board, thank you for listening to my concerns. Thank you also to Mr. Harkins and Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Wallace, I don't think is here, for reaching out to the neighborhood in advance of this meeting. I understand your point of view, but I'm opposed to the project. I feel like we just got some changes made after the unfortunate project on Livingston. And I feel like the ink isn't even dry on what the city council did, and these guys are coming in for a special permit. But I was struck by hearing my neighbors. We live in that neighborhood, and when we talk about our homes, we talk about our family home, our historic homes, my yard, my garden. I got a sidewalk. And the developers and the people who want to do these A&R subdivision, they use terms like investment property, subdivisions, buildable lot, profit margin, and speculation. After my experience over the summer, I don't think these A&R subdivision new construction projects are good for historic neighborhoods. This project will add more people and more cars to an already crowded neighborhood, as my neighbors on Harvard have just said. And what the majority of residents will get, pretty much what we got over on my street. Lost property values, construction noise, crowding, more traffic, more pavement, increased runoff. That's what it's going to end up with. So please do not make an exception for this project. Do not send the signal that any property with a large lot is ripe for developers who want to subdivide and build. Thank you for listening to my concerns.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Hi, Roberta Burns, 90 Livingston Avenue. We're here again. We were here in the summer. I don't necessarily disagree with new building, but this neighborhood is saturated. There's what used to be Temple Bethel on the corner is now Christian Academy. It draws cars where Temple Bethel was a walking community. There's cars all over the street. Livingston Avenue, which used to be a street that nobody parked cars on, they're now all over this. I mean, they didn't park on the street. They were all off-street parking. The parking now is all over the tops of the street. You can't even turn onto Livingston Avenue because of that problem. So the parking on Harvard is just going to be worse. I also have an issue with this 10-foot buffer zone, because if you look at the plan, I'm not saying that this is going to be done, but I'm watching the property in back of me. There's a lot there. There's an L-shaped lot. Could that possibly, will we be back here in a year because that lot's going to be sold off and now they have the 10 feet to make that extra? I mean, these are all things I'm looking forward to in the future. And, you know, Livingston Avenue does have another large lot that we're paying attention to as well. And I know that that's going to be subdivided. So just to disagree with this project, I think the neighborhood has had enough. I think that we're tired and worn out from coming back and forth. And it's nothing against the developer or the builder or anything. We're just tired. And the plans were just changed, the rules were just changed, and here we are again 3 months later. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing it no further, that portion of public hearing is closed.
Excuse me. James Lake, 43 Nicollet Street. I'm literally the new guy on the block here. I've only been here a little less than a year.
What was your name again, please, sir?
James Lake, L-A-K-E.
Thank you.
I married the owner of 43 Nicollet Street back in April. She's been here about 15 years in the same house. And I don't have anything to add to what's already been said. I just want to voice my our objection because of all the reasons stated, especially the congestion that would create, garbage removal, snow removal, the parking. I hadn't even thought about the Christian Academy across the street. I'm always finding it difficult to park in front of our house during the winter because of dropping kids off and picking kids up, and this will only make it worse on top of it. So I just wanted to voice our objection for the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to speak in opposition? Anyone else? Opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to any of the board members have any comments, questions, or concerns. Rich, do you have any questions? No, we start. Okay. Mr. Claremont, you mind if I start with you?
No, it's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions, if I could. The Bridgewell property, is that still in operation there?
No, they've left.
Closed down.
They've closed, yeah.
Could you or someone on your behalf describe what the Bridgewell operation involved?
They were more disabled patients at Bridgewell. You know, they would care for them, and they
Is that a
lived there.
daily in and out thing?
No, I think
did they
they're
stay
residents.
Overnight,
They're residents, yeah.
long-term residences and whatnot?
Yep.
And when did they close down, if you know?
Do you know when
Last year? On a daily basis, do you know how many people would come and go out of that property when Bridgewell was in operation there?
maybe,
If the neighbor may know.
why don't you,
They had approximately 8 residents that lived there, along with maybe a half dozen staff. In the carriage house in the back, there was quarters and offices for the staff, And I think they would take the residents to and from meetings or to and from appointments. So they had a van or two that would come and go from the property. There wasn't a lot as far as cars on the property, except for the staff. Nobody that lived there had anything as far as vehicles.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Flick, could you describe what's going to be done at the Lowell House property as far as snow removal is concerned?
Do you want to just Dean will address that.
First of all, I guess to clarify, again, with this parking situation and the snow removal, there's plenty of area in which to push snow into this lot. It's a big lot. But if you were looking for an area to do it, you would do it if we're facing it from Harvard Street to the left of the carriage house. If you pushed it back onto that land right there, if you wanted to make that part of whatever requirements would go there, that's part of the open space area. There's I think it's about 18 to 20 feet of buffer, straight buffer, back about 50 feet, maybe 40 feet from the edge of the paving, or there's a tree in that area. So say from that tree back, and that's the tree we're hoping to obviously keep. The other ones have to go, but from that area back, that could easily be a spot. I mean, there's plenty of paving there now that I think there's areas in which to be able to push the snow and leave snow in an area that left great line of sight. The further back on the property you can push the snow, the better, obviously. But I believe that this property already has that type of line of sight.
And what would you describe as the traffic pattern for the cars in and out of the property? Is the curb cut on Harvard Street?
What you would do coming out of that is there's basically a turnaround, and there's a large paved area, and what already exists there is like an area that you would pull into the driveway and you'd bang out and you'd stay to the left. And then those custom...
The driveway would be off Harvard Street coming into your 10 spaces there?
Yes. The driveway already exists. That curb cut is already there. It's already, it's already the proper width coming in, so it's not like it's double wide all the way so cars are streaming in either direction. It kind of is a shorter driveway at that entrance, a normal home driveway. You come in a ways, then it opens up into parking to the left. And you're able to get a turnaround.
Okay, when you say a turnaround, where is that on the plan?
You would back up on your, well, I guess I don't have the plan in front of me, but basically you would back up, use currently what you have now is a drive area. And what I have also proposed for the residents that are going to move in there is that if we find that they're having some difficulty, we could go all the way up to 3 feet from the edge of the house. So if you look at distance requirements here, you're looking at 28 feet, I believe, from the corner of the house, the front corner of the house, to the edge of the property. Okay, and in that's where you're going to create a runway. And if you went around that bump out that's in the front, you could actually move in further toward that if you needed to create that even more access for them. So that's part of what we're envisioning doing there. One of the things is that the Lowell House is their goal obviously is to do the best they can at filling their facility, but based upon the information that's currently coming from them, they don't intend to have that right away. They're trying to ease into this too. And I'm not saying it's going to be 1 or 2, but they want to try to get their residents in there, and then we've guaranteed them that we would create the proper setup for their parking to make their parking work for everyone concerned.
Right.
So
you're depicting it here as sort of angled parking where they come in off Harvard and just pull in.
Yeah, I think it's
backing out.
I think
how do they turn around?
I think honestly that's probably not depicted as good as it could be. If you're looking at what's actually there and actually how you would do it, you would use what's currently in that spot. I believe that there's more parking spaces toward the rear and back, but that's a tougher way in and out. So I wouldn't use that first space coming in directly off of Harvard. I would continue to go down a little bit further. These are angled ones. I wouldn't do it. There's the ability to put 2 to the back area where you see the deck area there. There's one that you could put there, and there's one you could put to the side. So it's there. What we're talking about doing, honestly, obviously, and I said that earlier, was to get a line specialist out there, somebody that can, literally create and buffer the lines, create the lines in the parking lot for them, and be able to designate 1 through 12, and create them on the lot.
Do you anticipate doing anything as far as the sidewalk and the curbing around the property?
That side of the property currently doesn't have any sidewalks right there in front of us, so I think we'd just probably go with whatever the rest of the sidewalks are on the other side of the street at that spot. And then, we haven't looked at doing any sidewalk for that side of the road because they currently don't exist, correct? There's no sidewalks to that side of the street, so, we just kind of keep it the way it's set up.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but absent the change in the increase in the frontage on these properties, the zoning change, this project could be built as of right? Is there any impediment to that other than the zoning change that went from 90 to 75 feet?
The zoning actually went from 55 feet to 75 feet to 90 feet.
But the frontage requirement?
The frontage requirements. The size of the lot, if we look at this lot in relation to the neighborhood, at the entire neighborhood, some of the, and outside of, I believe, a couple of the lots that are surrounding us, most of the lots in the entire abutters list actually have a lot less property than the 10,000 square feet that is proposed, the 10,000 plus for the house and the 11,000 and change for the 65 Howard Street. So we, in most cases, in a couple of cases, we actually are more than double the amount of land that other people currently live on. And so that, that obviously is the biggest thing for us. I mean, Harvard Street originally, and look, I understand what the neighbors went through. I do, and just to give you an idea, if we were under the current zone or the old zoning, there would be the possibility of doing a house and 2 lots. It's there. It's all there in frontage. You can view it yourself and take a look at it. So, I mean, thank goodness that it wouldn't, be there, because it's not going to be there, because it obviously is not in the best interest of the neighborhood, and that's one of those, one of the areas, and I've basically spoken to a lot of the neighborhood groups and people about it, that, frankly, that area slipped through the cracks as it pertained to frontage. Because back in 2004, when the changes were made in the city, and the mandate was to create more single-family home ownership, and frankly, I think it's really been effective and is working. But that one area, or a couple of areas that were in that S2 zone, they reduced the frontage requirements from 65 feet to 55 feet. And in doing so, that part of it slipped through the cracks, and that's what created the problems that they currently see on Harvard Street, on Livingston Street now. And there were 2 properties in particular that I know were built. They would not have been able to have been built if that zoning wasn't reduced in 2004 from 65 feet to 55 feet. That's a history lesson, and then, and part of it is we understand the history of this neighborhood. We understand it. We understand that it's, current history is not great relative to, builders and so forth. I understand the neighborhood's tired of fighting these type of battles, but the reality of it is, as a person who, lives next to a group home in my neighborhood, I'm from the city of Lowell here, I work here, I employ people here, and I also understand the zoning. I live on 75 feet of frontage. So to give, in the neighborhood that I live in, I live on 75 feet of frontage and if I wanted to subdivide off my home, come in here for a lot now on my house, I would have to go in front of this board and ask for, it's the same zone, the S2 zone, S1 zone, I would have to ask for a special permit in order to be able to build on that, even though I have a lot more than 10,000 square feet. And my neighbors to my left are on 4,000 square feet. I understand that part of it. So the aspect of trying to understand the history of this neighborhood, understand the history of what's taken place, and with real care, and looking at trying to create what would be in the end something that the neighbors would say, okay. And the reality of it is sometimes it seems bigger than it actually is, because we're going to be building on, if we're successful here, on on a much larger lot than most of the lots in the neighborhood.
With regard to the parking, just wanted to review that 1 second. You've got 12 spaces depicted on the plan, and Aaron, am I reading it correctly that for boarding a lodging house requiring 1 space per 2 beds, if there's going to be 12 occupants of this property, are we saying the requirements would be 6 spaces, or?
That's correct.
All right, and what do you anticipate doing, if anything, as a buffer between the parking area and what would be a neighboring lot?
Well, currently, we're talking with the Lowell House and establishing potentially either, depending on how all of us see how that might work, either some buffering with arborvitae or something along those lines, or a fence. But, the interesting aspect for us is that, we would probably have the Lowell House do the fence, because I'm not sure, under the new guidelines of building a new house under the historic, whether we would be required under that to build a fence that would have to fall under that category too, under a historic.
Form of buffer, either.
But we're trying to create a buffer that would work for them and for us and for everybody else too.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Claremont. Any other board members have any questions, concerns?
I have
Mr.
just a couple of comments. First, if this project should move forward, I think a key component or a key condition would be to continue to work with the Historic Board. There are a number of comments here tonight about property values and neighborhood character. And I can assure you, I serve on the Historic Board representing the Planning Board, and I'm intimately familiar with what we do there, and if you continue to work with the staff, they will protect that neighborhood character in detail, I can assure you that. Secondly, the parking. What you're showing on the plan there, and again, there are 2 or 3 comments regarding that, with angled parking along that left is, in my opinion, totally out of character with the neighborhood. Again, referencing neighborhood character. So I would encourage you to do 2 things. Try to break that up, parking it up as much as possible. And with a combination of landscaping and other softening techniques with either fencing or something, just really soften that to lessen the impact on the neighborhood. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lockhart. Mr. Fischett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, and it was mentioned by several residents and the fellow board members, the parking on that existing structure seems to be the challenge. Just a question to Mr. Jenkins. My understanding is you're not looking to increase the paving at all on this site, is that correct?
We're hoping not to. I mean, we need 6 parking spaces. That's truly what you need for the amount of residents that are there. You need 6 parking spaces. We're trying to show 12 because we want to be able to show that it can be done if we had to, But the reality of it is that the requirement is that we need 6 spaces. Again,
based on what you're presenting to us, representing 12 occupants, and with the zoning, we just need to make 6 parking spaces, which I think obviously 6 is easily met. 12 is a stretch, but my concern is, it's a pre-existing non-conforming situation based on that parking setup. If it's not going to be increased, that's one thing. If you're going to increase the paved area, obviously that's an issue. We get into the usable open space, so I'm just concerned about increasing any pavement to that site. Also, that large tree next to the carriage house, and you said the intent is going to be to preserve that tree, is that correct?
That is the hope, that we are able to preserve that tree, because that tree is not bad. We think that tree can work for us, And the other aspect of it again is that obviously we didn't know where we were going here, and so one of the important aspects of this is to create a striping parking lot that would actually depict the spots, and work with planning and development on anything additional after that would probably be something that we'd obviously, look at doing and hope to, create a buffering zone, a landscaping area, and obviously a place to put snow.
Sure. Because my concern was, looking at the diagram and looking at the site where that tree was located, it almost looked like you were having, some of the parking was encroaching on where the tree and the open space was. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that. The other, as I look at this was actually very helpful, the lot sizes in the neighborhood. And I know, walking the neighborhood and clearly, when you look at on the opposite side of Harvard Street, as soon as you hit Troy, most of the frontage of the lots are 50 feet. I think that's why probably this was a difficult neighborhood when it was looked at initially with the rezoning. When you looked at some of the larger lots and some of the larger homes, and then you looked at some of the lots that had smaller frontage and then trying to balance that. I think you gave a good zoning history on that particular location. I think clearly, based on the current zoning, and the zoning was changed to suburban single-family, so that's, we had quite an increase. It wasn't just increasing the frontage, but increasing it to the suburban single-family on that particular site. And so I think from that perspective, I think it is not a stretch from what the intent of the rezone was. Now, I think the concern is, and the concern I had with the special permit that was enacted, and just for clarification, because I know even as a board, we reached out to planning and development initially in trying to get an understanding of this, but and I know the word waiver was used a few times tonight, and making an exception, and the concern is, and I think Attorney Flood read the letter from the city manager to the city council, and based on what the intent of the special permit, as I understand it, is that it wasn't to create a situation where you're looking for a variance per se. It's recognizing the fact that it was allowed under the prior zoning, and that the intent was not necessarily to prevent the development, but be able to control the development. And Aaron, if you could just, and I know we've had some discussions on this, but if you could just expand a little on that, and so to truly what the intent of that was, and certainly if something isn't appropriate, then obviously it's within the purview of the special permit, but truly what the intent was, if you could, please.
Sure. And I think there's been a couple references to a timeline and zoning amendments for this area based on concerns about some infill development that happened on Livingston Street. As noted, there was first an amendment that changed the current zoning from a traditional single-family for a portion of the neighborhood to suburban single-family, and then created a new neighborhood review district for the historic board. And this property, the subject property that is under review tonight, is included in that amendment. So the frontage requirement in the TSF was 55 feet. Then when the amendment went through for the suburban single family, that increased it to 75 feet. And as also was mentioned earlier, that the changes in minimum lot area, usable open space, and et cetera, also were increased along with that zoning amendment. And then, of course, the historic review district created a new process for any new construction or demolition in the district be reviewed by the historic and approved by the historic board before that happens. Later on, to address some concerns related to the A&R approval not required process that's allowed through the subdivision control law in Massachusetts, a second amendment to the zoning code was created, and this basically touched the entire city. So the first amendment was very specific to this neighborhood to increase the frontage requirements based on those concerns raised earlier. The frontage increase that touched the whole city, in essence, increased the frontage requirement by another 15 feet for all districts for residential projects. And then included with that, the special permit option to reduce it back down 15 feet to the original, what was at the time the original frontage requirement. There's, so just to kind of go back and hit that timeline for the board's benefit, the special permit was intended to do two things. And one was primarily allow that there is a process whereby the approval not required subdivision process actually brought it back into some sort of public review, that there would be a public hearing for any new lots that were created if they were under a certain frontage, certain frontage requirement. And just to, without getting too much into the A&R process, it's really it's based on frontage. That's the only piece in the zoning that the planning board can take into account in endorsing an A&R lot or not. So it was really intended to provide for a public process where there was really none in the first place. Then the second piece was to allow and have a little bit more control, design control over infill projects, so that if a property owner was looking to provide for an infill lot, that there would be design review with the planning board. And in the special permit process, there's two ways that happens. One is, in this case, through the historic board. The historic board, if it is in a review district, will be the design review committee in that case. If it is not, if the infill project or the property is not in a historic review district, it's the Department of Planning and Development would provide for the design review analysis. And it was intended to do two things. One, make sure that the infill development was aligned with the character of the neighborhood. I'm talking about scale, proportion, location of the building on the lot, and the architectural details that are posed along with that, so that there needed to be some details in the building that matched the level of that's in the existing neighborhood. Not that it had to be the same building style per se, but the same level of detail. And then second, that the review of the lot itself was in the character of the neighborhood as well. We're not just talking about the size, but how the planning board is, you've seen on many subdivision lots where they're strange shapes, and on plan, they provide for the minimum requirements for the zoning, but in practice, because of the strange layout that they don't really provide, in a practical sense, the usable space that the zoning is intended. So this also added a level of review about the lot itself, and that the lot in its size was conforming with the character of the neighborhood. So hopefully
Thanks,
that answers.
Aaron. And that's really what I wanted, because I've been kind of grappling with this as far as when we first was presented with the amendment and the city council voted on this, and I think in some instances the expectation was that it provided a format to out and out deny it if in fact it was a case where it was not something that people wanted to see go forward. It was really designed to create a level of review just to make sure, as Aaron had indicated, that obviously if we had an odd-shaped lot, if the house that was being proposed did not meet the design character of the abutting properties. And in this particular case, we have a unique situation because of the remaining lot and the use of that lot, which we can't control. However, it lays out certainly differently than a residential primary residence, single family with the parking. My biggest concern was the parking, and I think I've been satisfied here this evening relative to the pre-existing condition, and that we're not going to add to the paving on this. And in fact, there's adequate parking based on what's being proposed according to the zoning table of the parking required for lodging. So from that perspective, and I know you'll still be working, the petitioner still has to work with the historic board on the real details of the home. We have plans of the home that's being proposed, and I certainly, from looking at that, certainly feel that that meets the design standards that we're looking for within that neighborhood. So from that perspective, I can appreciate the concerns that the residents have, and I certainly understand that. Certainly looking at what's happened in other areas in the city as well, the concern of infill development and that it isn't character with the existing neighborhood. Once again, I think this is a telling map here as far as lot sizes. It's easy to lose perspective on what the actual sizes are of abutting lots and lots up and down a particular street. I certainly think that that will be in keeping, that will still have, the frontage will still be greater than most of the homes on Harvard Street, and will conform with the zoning. And this will, again, the special permit was put in place in order to have this review to make sure that those elements are being met. And in my opinion, the elements are being met here in this instance. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Genman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think this is a difficult issue for us to consider tonight, because I am very sympathetic to all of the issues brought up by the neighborhood. Congestion in the neighborhood is a problem across the city that we need to control. We need to control, otherwise we're going to build ourselves right out of the city. That said, I think that we have to take individual projects, individually. In this case, as Aaron was stating, a developer would have had the ability to build anything they want on this lot as with an approval not required prior to the change by the city council. Now the city council increased the frontage to 90 feet, but they put in this proviso of the special permit, and the special permit, which is granted by us, is to be granted in cases where it gives us the ability to control what happens on that lot, right? It gives us the ability to make sure what goes on that lot is going to be in character with the neighborhood. As my colleagues have mentioned, this is a lot that's more than double most of the lots in the neighborhood. I think that the proposal by the developer is for a house that is relatively small, 3-bedroom home. I think it's going to be a family home. I think it's the type of home that with a 10,000 square foot lot, which, as we know, in Lowell is a pretty good sized lot, I think it'll be an attractive lot for some family to move into. So it's hard to say that that development is not in character with the rest of the neighborhood. Certainly, it seems as though it would be, especially with the very tight review that would happen at the historic board. I'm sure that we're going to get something there that everybody will be happy with. The bigger problem here is the lot next door, right? I think everybody would agree that the biggest concern we have here tonight is, what about this group home next door? And we don't want to have a parking lot on a residential street. We don't want to have to jam 12 cars in there. It is going to be a problem with snow removal if you've got 12 cars in there. You can't tell me that, based on the plan you've spec'd out here, that we have any place to put the snow on this lot. So I guess my question is to you, Aaron, and that is, what kind of, in this situation, what kind of control do we have over the lot next door? Can we put conditions on the parking and on the snow removal and on other things for the lot adjacent to this property as part of this special permit?
Yeah, so hopefully I can address that fairly succinctly here. The use itself is basically protected under Mass General Law. That it's the Dover Amendment that prevents communities from creating or preventing uses like group homes or nonprofit educational purpose. All these kinds of uses. So from a use perspective, there's really not much that can be done as far as conditions to restrict what's done on site. However, these types of uses we can reasonably restrict the size and character of the building. So they are still subject to the dimensional requirements of the zoning code and the parking requirements. So I would say that conditions that address a special permit and address parking, such as snow storage, where is snow going to be placed, is it going to be removed, that sort of thing, to ensure that there is adequate parking to support the use on site, to ensure that at a minimum the 6 parking spaces are provided and are practically accessible throughout the year. And then the landscaping and that is, either preserved or enhanced due to the redevelopment of the site, is something that can be reviewed by the planning board in condition to make sure that building itself and the lot itself continues to, at least as a structure, fit with the character of the neighborhood. So those things can be addressed by the planning board. The use itself, though, is not something that can be restricted.
Sure, yeah, okay. All right, so I had a couple other questions about the development. There's some really big trees on the front side of that lot as well. I'm talking about the lot that's under development. Are you planning to remove those trees?
They have to come down.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of the driveway and the garage. And honestly, they're dangerous trees. They're awful big and overgrown, and frankly, one of them's leaning in the wrong direction already, and we would definitely have to take those down.
Well, I would say that any tree that's still standing after what we've been through in the past few weeks is probably a solid tree, but nonetheless, I understand you want to take those down. How about the trees on the backside on the...
We definitely want to keep as much buffer, and the good part about this lot as it pertains to the rear neighbors on Livingston Street is that there's an awful lot of land between the proposed home and the back of the rear of the lot, including some shade type, buffering type trees. I mean, in the wintertime, we all lose our leaves and you can see through, but during the rest of the seasons, there's a decent amount of buffering there. Not complete, not completely closed off, but enough to like a normal situation that you see throughout the city.
Mm-hmm. So you'd accept a condition to retain those trees on
Yes.
the backside of the property. And I assume that you'd also be looking to or willing to replace the trees that you take down with new trees that are better positioned on the lot once the development is complete.
We are, and I think like most of the nice trees that you see, buffering streets, you see a lot of them toward the front of the houses because, frankly, gives a nice landscape down the road. But if there was something that could be put, in the right strategic spot in the rear of the yard, again, I work with Rachel Kisker in planning and development as it pertains to landscape plans. And again, we're willing and want to create something that everybody who in this room currently, who might not agree totally with it, in the end will say, these guys did what they said they were going to do and created something that looked nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, there's always this issue about sidewalks and curbs. And I realize that in this portion of that side of the street, there's no sidewalk and curb. But I still think that...
There's a sidewalk.
There is a sidewalk.
Yeah, we have to create a sidewalk.
So you're going to create a sidewalk. I thought you said earlier that you weren't going to...
No, not in front of this lot, not in front of this lot. And from 65 Harvard Street's driveway, go heading down toward 55, 45, 35, there is. From that point forward, there is not.
So you're going to have a sidewalk and curb in front of both
Right?
of these
Am
lots?
I right? You have a sidewalk in front of your house? All right, so we're gonna match a sidewalk in between that.
So you'll have a sidewalk and a curb in front
Yeah,
of these
so we'll have to
properties?
do the vertical granite on that and create the sidewalk to meet the neighborhood. It's fine.
Okay. All right.
I wasn't sure if it was there, so,
Okay.
it's not my only project.
So, I would, with the proper conditions, I think if we can, personally, you need 6 parking spots on this. Mr. Frechette brought up the point of not increasing the paving on that, on the existing group home. I think that would be something that I'd want to see maintained. So, whatever parking you're going to get it out of the existing paving so that we don't have to make this into a parking lot.
What I want to talk about to that is that, again, you might take some here to create here within the lot. I mean, you want to leave the same amount of paving, that's fine, okay? I'm just not sure it's the smartest move to leave it exactly where it is. There's a lot of it that heads up toward to the house itself. There's a lot of paved area there that part of the questions that came out was like, how would you there's not enough grass or not enough open space and so forth. So part of for us is that without increasing the amount of paving that's there, we might change some paving that's there, to make sure it accommodates. One of the things is we wanted to get a design professional in there that would basically, mark out this parking lot, maybe have
Call it a driveway, not a parking lot.
Driveway entering in and out to make sure that there was good flow of traffic, and then also to mark out for the residents of the home and also for the neighborhood itself, some, not bright yellow, white, not something crazy, but just something thin and narrow that would create some parking so that everybody would say, here's the designated parking for this spot.
Right. Okay. So my concern is I just want to make sure that we come up with a parking plan here that's going to be conducive to the rest of the neighborhood. Obviously, having some parking off-street is going to be helpful for the neighborhood. There's a group home there. We actually were handed a letter tonight. I don't know if you neighbors got a chance to see it, but it says Lowell House Incorporated plans to develop the property located at 65 Harvard Street as permanent, affordable, sober housing for a maximum of 12 women. And as was stated earlier, the parking that is required by the city for a house like that is 6 spaces. So my feeling would be, let's come up with a parking plan that's going to give you, at least 6 spaces, more if it can be done without affecting, paving the whole yard or anything like that, such that people can get in and out easily. And if you can do anything to kind of obstruct it, with bushes or something from the street, I think that would be helpful too.
I think, Steve, right there in the very front, there's a guide wire that comes down, that comes and takes down one of the poles that's currently there, and there's a guide wire that comes down to that area. That would be a prime area for buffering, coming in, like almost visually putting something behind that guide wire onto the lot that would create some sort of visual barrier for, landscaping-wise, toward the back parking, if you wanted to. If there was something that planning and development and the landscaping aspect of it looked at it, that would be a good spot to create some buffering so the neighborhood's not looking at all those.
Okay. So I think if we can have a parking plan that's going to be attractive to the neighborhood and screened from the street, if we have preserved the trees along the backside of the property, if we can come up with a landscape plan for both properties that, the city approves. We're going to put sidewalks and curbs in front of both of these, vertical granite curb in front of both of these properties. I think those are the types of things that I'd be looking for to make this work. And, just in summary, I'd say, I really feel as though the spirit of this change that the city council made was not to further restrict development, but to make sure that the development that goes in there is done well and done properly and is within the character of the neighborhood. And I really think that what has been shown to us fits that criteria. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Gentleman. I just have a couple minor questions. I think everybody addressed a lot of the issues. On the lot, I believe most of the concentration that we're discussing tonight is the lot that's already existing, that's already built and has all the parking, and not the proposed new lot that they're trying to put in as a single-family residence in a 10,758 square foot lot that meets all the zoning requirements except for the new frontage. But since the concerns on the existing lot, where Bridgewell was, the only, how many beds are in the 65 Harvard Street?
Today?
Yeah, how many beds are there?
None, but
Bedrooms?
there are 6 bedrooms, including the carriage house. That includes the carriage house.
Because I believe what sets the parking requirement is the amount of bedrooms on the lot. That's what's set by the zoning requirement.
It's the number of beds.
Number of beds.
Number of beds,
Bed,
yeah.
okay.
And that's what they're proposing to us. Their
Doing with the
proposal to
12,
us was that. So
but I do believe that knowing the existence of Lowell House and Bridgewell, that you most likely, in the determination of what I know both of them do, would decrease the amount of parking spots you'd need and as many as parking people coming in and out of the site, correct?
I would think.
It's hard to predict. In all honesty, it's hard to predict. I mean, you're talking about sober women above a certain age. I
know,
believe it's
see,
45,
Goodwell-
whatever, work and whatever.
Well, we
so.
had a lot of transportation picking and taking up the
A
people.
lot of
who need the
vans.
assistance from
That's
them.
what the neighbors had said, in and out vans and a lot of disturbance and so forth, but.
So I mean, I agree too with Mr. Jenkins. What he indicated was, obviously, this parking layout could be a lot better. I know, even by looking at our planning comments, whenever we have a proposal, they have to come before the planning board, and part of what the zoning was set up for was, every time we get a project comes before us, it has to be, this project has to go out to all to all the departments in the city. We have to get comments back from the building department, the city engineer, the fire department, the Board of Health, the police department, traffic engineer, wastewater, and conservation. And the reason for the new zoning was to make sure that any new project that goes through, it does have the scrutiny of all these departments. Where the project on Livingston did not have that scrutiny, because what that was called is, what everybody says is an A&R plan, just so people understand, an A&R plan stands for approval not required. That means when that plan went in, there was nothing the Division of Planning and Development could do. That's under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40B. We can control our own zoning and make our own regulations, but if they're in contradictory to Mass General Laws, they're legally invalid. So all we can try to do is set it down and try to make more scrutiny. So when this was first proposed, as one of the women speakers indicated, they did send out proposal for the people in the neighborhood. That wasn't a request by us, that was a request by the city council, who was doing the zoning change. The feedback came out from some of the people. Some of the people wanted the change. A lot of people didn't. Some people thought it was a taking by the city of Lowell against other people who had a right to develop their own property. And saying, wait a minute, I bought this property, I had all these rights to do it, now you're changing off me. There was a lot of people who wrote back and says, I don't think it's right. So that was just a proposal to see what the feedback was. Some people did not respond, and by some of the surveys, it was people who didn't live there who attended. And when all said and done, when those proposals came back, we looked and we said, how many lots is this going to affect in this new historic district that was created? And the historic district was created so people would be able to make sure now they have stricter guidelines on what they have to build on this lot in regards to building it, where before it never existed. And I think the whole total of rezoning all this and doing the historic, I think we come up with 4, maybe 5 sites in total. And I think most of the concern, as everybody is saying, is what are we going to do with the house lot that's already there? As indicated by Mr. Clausen, who's our associate planner, is we can't restrict what's there. I think if the main concern that most people have was the amount of parking. I think if we could reduce the parking, bring it back away from the street, put in some type of landscaping, and have a better turnaround radius in the back, because I think, as Mr. Jenkins says, you could definitely pick up parking spaces in the back by the 2 decks area. You can pull them in there, and there could even be a turning radius back there to be a lot easier to get to. And I think if you brought that back a little bit, even as Mr. Jen was saying, cut down on some of the parking, where now the need might not be as much, then hopefully the concerns are that this parking here won't go out into the street. Because on the other house that we're looking at, that could be the proposed new lot, it's basically, it does fit the neighborhood, the fact that it has all the dimensional requirements for the side yard, the front yard, rear yard, and it's just the 75 feet of zoning. And part of the other reason that Manager Lynch didn't include when he wrote the letter to the council, which we received a copy of, is for when something this comes in, it's to see if it does meet the criteria in the neighborhood. And as a lot of the board members said, if you look at the total lot square footage and the frontage of the other houses in that neighborhood, it's basically consistent, if not larger than some of the other ones. So I think if they're held to the standard of putting the sidewalk in, putting the curbing in, which is the vertical granite, the fact that they go along with what the planning development requested, that if this project was approved, that they'd be more than happy to make them, to have them work with them with the landscaping conditions. The traffic department indicated they'd be more than happy to help set out a detailed parking configuration to make the parking get in and out, and hopefully, what I would request is maybe to decrease the amount of parking spaces, or at least take that, because that look of driving up Harvard Street, especially, you know, you look and you see all these places, it does look out of character for the neighborhood. So hopefully, with the change, hopefully we can change a little bit of 65 Harvard Street, because even if we don't approve it, 65 Harvard Street's staying the way it is, or maybe gonna be worse, and it's never gonna get better. So at this point in time, there may be an opportunity to help restrict some of these issues that everybody mentions on Harvard Street, on 65. Because if we do nothing, all those problems are gonna exist. They're all gonna stay there. You're gonna have all that parking problem, you're gonna have that snow problem, and nothing's gonna change on 65, and there's nothing we can do to change that. It's gonna stay as is. So most of the concern, like I say, for the new lot, there hasn't been a lot of concerns due to the fact, because just it meets all the other requirements. So I think with the applicant, if they're willing to work with Division of Plan and Development, the landscaping plan, the traffic plan, hopefully we could help make further restrictions on 65 Harvard Street, where without this proposal, we can't. We can't change it all. It'll stay as is. And most of the concern from the neighbors were the concern for 65. So if we want to try to restrict what goes on 65, try to make 65 Harvard more adaptable to the neighborhood, this would be an opportunity to try to put certain restrictions on if the applicant was willing to do so, and then we could try to address some of the needs that was raised by the public. Those are my comments. Thank you. Any other board members have any further follow-up as a result of what's been said by other board members?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to, if I could, underscore one point that you made, and that is that we can't control what happens on 65 Harvard to some extent, right? But we can restrict the parking. And the number of beds in that house are dependent on the number of parking spots. 12 spaces means they can do 24 beds. 6 spaces means they can't do more than 12 beds. So just to underscore the point that the chairman, I think, was making, is that taking some control over the parking situation at 65 Harvard inadvertently gives us some control over a 12-person a house can operate just nicely there on 6 parking spots, and it sounds like that's what they want to do. So keeping it at 6 parking spots, in my opinion, is a good idea.
If I may, just so I can be clear and open with and frank, you know, the reality of it is that, you know, we're not sure that 6 spaces is gonna be what they require. What we would absolutely be open to, and this is what we have talked to the Lowell House about, would be to restrict the amount of residents that could be there. You know, we don't wanna say, here's the 6 parking spots that are required under it, Steve, you know what I mean? And then say, now there's 9 people living there that have cars, and there's nowhere else for them to park, okay? And they're out on the street, and that's what we're really, truly trying to avoid here. You know, that's one of the things that we're trying to avoid. So, you know, this is why we want to say, we want to show you the maximum amount of parking spaces, give you as much, you know, of an opportunity within the planning and development to say, okay, uncle, you know, you can get 9 spaces comfortably, or whatever it may be, whatever that design may be, that creates the optimum amount of, you know, comfort for, you know, that we're not creating one problem, leaving one problem and creating another, you know. So with that said, you know, what I'm hoping is that we can look at it from that perspective and say there's maximum amount of tenants that could be there. Use that as a stipulation. And then the other thing to consider here is that this second lot is truly the way to ensure that there is no expansion of that building ever again. So, you know, because they wouldn't meet any of the other requirements that would be necessary to create more parking, create more stuff. So, you know, if it was left as it was, then it could be a much larger situation and scope. So we want to try to, you know, I mean, I appreciate where we're at, you know, but I want to also be honest with this board and honest with the neighborhood and say, you know, they want to have as many as 12 residents. That's what makes their criteria work, and we want to create as much parking that fits, if that makes sense to you. You know what I mean? And using, you know, I'm not an expert parking lot planner. You know what I mean? So we hire them. We hire them in planning and development. can help us to do that. And also with the, you know, with the idea in mind that we would do the landscaping and whatever else would be necessary to create the proper buffers.
So I can appreciate that, and certainly would rather have people parking in a lot than on the street. At the same time, I think we want to control the number of residents in that house to the extent that we can. And I'm not sure we can do what you're saying we can do, and that is limit the amount of residents in that home. Can we do that, Aaron?
To my knowledge, is we couldn't place the board would not be able to place a condition on a rooming house that restricts the number of residents that would be able to live there. The building code itself, the Mass Building Codes, does have a limit on occupancy, but it's going to be higher than 12 residents. It's based on basic safety, egress, and health and that sort of thing. But the zoning code is not. We're not able to restrict the number of residents through the zoning code.
Mm-hmm. So I think this is an important enough issue where I'd really like to see the parking plan in the, what we're actually going to, we're talking kind of theoretically here. And I'd really like to see that and approve that before it's put into place. Aaron, could we put that on as a condition that we would be required to come back before the board and approve the site plan, including the parking on the lot?
I believe so, and the planning board has done that in the past for special permit and site plan review, for that matter, which has a lower discretionary standard. So that is absolutely under the board's purview.
So I think I would like to propose that to my colleagues that we have a condition on here that the site plan, both the parking and the landscaping, the screening, come back to us, as part of this special permit, so that we can, and we have the authority to approve or disapprove it. That's all,
Any
Mr. Chairman.
discussion on the motion?
That wasn't really a motion, it was kind of a suggestion.
Any discussion on that comment?
So that's a motion for approval?
Well, I'd like to, I think that probably Mr. Claremont has been carefully listing all of the conditions that we put on this, as he usually does. So I'd like to see that as one of those conditions, that parking and landscaping plan come back to us before we...
Basically, as I understand it, it would be approved with conditions. One of the conditions would be to work with DPD on the parking layout and landscaping plan, but that plan would come back to us for final approval.
Correct.
As well as to continue to work with the historic board staff?
Well, I think...
They have to do that because it's an historic...
They have to.
It's an historic, yeah, so they have no choice.
All right, so that has to be done anyway.
So they have to get so even if we approve it in the historic board and it's not approval, it doesn't get approved. So if we approve the special permit,
Yeah,
it goes to the historic board, and they don't meet the criteria for the historic board,
that has to.
then it gets denied.
Sure.
So they have to get approval of both, right, Mr. Flett?
We have to go to the historic, correct.
Right. And you have to get it before us, before you go to historic board, or they won't consider it, right?
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Because if we don't
That's
approve
right
it,
in
then
the ordinance.
they wouldn't have the hearing on it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well said.
Anybody else have any further questions from the board? No?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so with
I
this
don't think we
one,
made the motion yet, but I'm ready.
Oh, all right, okay.
I have been taking notes. I'd make a motion to approve the special permit on lots 1 and 2 for the frontage reduction with conditions. And the conditions would be that the applicant work with the DPD on the parking layout and the landscaping plan to provide also for the snow removal, and that final plan come back to us for a final approval. That the trees in the back of the lot be retained, that the applicant retain and repair as needed the sidewalk and curbing with vertical granite, that there be no increase in the net paving on Lot 1, understanding the paving might be reconfigured, but there be no increase in the net paving, that the applicant may provide a buffer between lots 1 and 2, either a fence or plantings, and that we approve a waiver of the requirements set forth in Aaron's memo, number 5, the site plan requirements, that we grant a waiver of the minimum submittal requirements, so these don't have to be submitted. I think that was it.
If I could just add a comment that our traffic engineer indicated that they would like to have some more detail and they'd be willing to work with the applicant, so could we have the approval of the traffic engineer for the parking layout, if you could, please?
Sure.
And Mr. Claremont, if you would consider adding that the applicant replace any trees removed from the property with new trees in a more appropriate location.
I'm just not certain if some of the trees are gonna be in a spot that they can be replaced, just
Yeah, no, somewhere on the site.
any
So
issue
if they-
with that, any trees that would be replaced somewhere on the site?
As long as the caliper of tree, I mean, the type of tree, fine, we're open to the type of tree, but the caliper is an important aspect of it because, you know, we've been finding out that the higher the caliper, the harder it is to keep it alive.
You might not be able to maintain the location, but you replace it with another tree. That'd be-
Correct.
Okay. All right, so we add that as a condition as well.
Okay, so we do have a motion with several conditions on the
And
floor?
a second?
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. So the special permit has been approved with several conditions. And do you have a date for it? I'm sorry, go ahead.
You included both lots in there. We don't
Yes,
need two votes.
special permit lot one
Yeah, he
and
said
lot
1 and
two.
2. Do you have a date with your historic board as of yet, or when
No,
is that?
no,
Okay,
I mean, we wanted to get through here first.
okay, all right. Thank you, everyone, appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming down and speaking. Moving along on the agenda, we have 130 John Street.
Okay.
Okay, next matter is 130 John Street, Boot Mills, West Mills, number Mills 3, 4, 5, and Pickering House. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Boot Mill Developer LLC for site plan review for project located at 130 John Street. The proposal includes the development of the remainder of the West Boot Mill complex to feature approximately 43,065 square feet of commercial space and 77 residential units. The applicant is seeking site plan review under Section 11.4 of the City of Lowell zoning code. The parcel is located in the downtown mixed-use zoning district and covers approximately 94,012 square feet. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, James Flood, 549 Roger Street, Lowell, representing Boot Mill Developer LLC. I do have another letter I'd like to give the board. With me tonight is John Rudzinski, who is the developer, and also our project engineer, Dick Baumer from Nobis Engineering. As the notice stated, we're here for site plan review for the completion of the rehabilitation to the West Boot Mills into 77 residential units and approximately 43,000 square feet of commercial use. You also have to appear in front of the Board of Appeals for a special permit for the residential use. Boot Cotton Mills is a very important landmark in the city of Lowell. It's listed on both the National and State Register of Historic Places. It's included in the Lowell Historic Park and Preservation District. It's included in the Locks and Canals Historic District and the downtown Lowell Historic District. I think back in 2004, I think you were here, Tom, and I think Joe was on the board, but I don't know whether he was here at the meeting. We presented an original site plan to this planning board on behalf of Boot Cotton Mills 2 LLC, and that was in March of 2004. Excuse me, and that was approved. It was originally approved for 106 residential units and approximately 60,000 square feet of commercial space. Well, as most of us know, the project came on tough financial times and it was never finished. The only thing that was developed were 39 residential units were built and occupied. So John Rodzinski has been working very closely with the City of Lowell over a period of months regarding the completion of the project. And as you probably read in the newspaper, the city had some concerns about the prior developer and in what situation he left the city. So back in August, he entered into a memorandum of understanding with the City of Lowell pertaining to the completion of the project, which is going to help the city become whole when it's all done. John will be glad to discuss that further. The site plan we submitted tonight is very similar to what was submitted back in 2004. We're providing for a courtyard for entrance to the building, and we have four parking spaces, one of which is handicapped. These are not for permanent parking. These are for drop-offs and pickups. The permanent parking will be in the John Street garage, as evidenced by the letter from Chuck Carney that I presented with you tonight. But we will also be providing enhanced landscaping within the courtyard, which Dick will speak to. Like I said, we met with Chuck Carney, and he's agreed to provide us with 77 parking spaces for the residents, and also to provide us for additional 30 to 35 spaces during the day for the commercial users. We have read the comments from staff. And we have no problem with working as far as the landscaping is concerned in the courtyard. But I really think, and maybe Aaron can address this better, I think that's all subject to approval by the Lowell Historic Board. I think they're going to have a lot of control as to what goes into that courtyard. And I think that would also pertain to the comments regarding the fire lane. I don't think we can mark that without their approval. But we will work with DPD staff and the Lowell Historic Board to address those issues that you people have raised. As to snow removal, it's not going to change what's been going on now. It has been operating as a condominium. Wind Development takes care of the management, and they will be handling the plowing. They have to plow the same area that they presently plow because there's 39 residents in there already, and I've been told that there's been no problem, and they've never had to remove any snow from the site. The dumpsters are located within the building as they presently are, and there'll be no change with that. They pick it up 3 times a week. They wheel the dumpster out, and the trash company comes and picks it up. So as far as those comments are concerned, they have already been addressed because it is presently operating as a condominium. Like I said, it's really no change from what was originally approved, but where it wasn't finished, we have to come back in. So I'll turn it over to John if he wants to make some comments to the board, and then we can turn it over to Dick.
Is this less units than what we approved back in '04?
You approved 106, and we're going to put 77 in plus 39. So what's that? Come on. 116, yes. So it's a little more, Good, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Flood. John Rodzinski, 9 Lilac Terrace, Roslindale, Mass. And I'm pleased to be here and thrilled to be a part of getting this project back on track. I know it's been important to the city for quite a long time. I'll be brief. Just want to describe the development team here. My company is Reese Larkin Development. I'll be partnering with Wynn Development, which is obviously a well-known developer, owner, and property manager in the city of Lowell, among other places. And we're working closely with the current owner of the property, which is an affiliate of Consigli Construction, also well-known as a general contractor of larger projects in the city. So that's kind of the ownership team. I just did want to add that we've spent quite a bit of time, notwithstanding the fact that our project is fundamentally similar to what was approved 7 years ago. We have spent quite a bit of time making sure that our proposal is consistent with the expectations of the Lowell Historic Board, and we've met with the administrator, Steve Stoll, 3 times, as well as the existing condo owners. And there are 39 existing condominiums that were completed under the previous project, and we have been working and will continue to work with them to make sure that they're supportive of this project, which they are. The one thing I wanted to add, Attorney Flood referenced an agreement with the city. It was important to the city that in recognition of the previous financial participation that the city had in this project and the unfortunate outcome of that previous project, it was important for the city to have a financial stake in our project. So after some negotiating, we reached an agreement a couple months back, and I won't go into too many details. It was, I think it's public knowledge because I believe the city council approved the agreement before City Manager Lynch executed it. But it basically, again, in recognition of the previous financial support of the city, allows the city to participate in the benefits that that we hope the project will provide. And I can provide as much detail as that as the board would like to have. That's it, unless you have any questions.
Good evening. For the record, Richard Baumer, B-A-U-M-M-E-R, with Nobis Engineering, 585 Middlesex Street in Lowell. And just to drive home the point of we're complying with this site plan as closely as possible with the original approvals. And the landscape plan that was submitted with the documents you have in front of you is, we have a copy of that rendered here. The white space essentially in the middle of the plan is where the existing building is in this particular rendering. So as people come down the end of John Street now and would continue straight through down to the Riverwalk, you go to the right at the end of the street, which in this case is to the east. And you'll see the currently completed portion of the residential project. And then the initial entry courtyard where the 4 parking spaces will be and where the fire lane will be is then off to the left or to the west. There is a common space inside the building at that point, and then there's an interior courtyard that is surrounded by Mill 4 and Mill 5 West. That is currently just a flat piece of, I'll say, it's kind of asphalt, but it's a panelized asphalt. Never seen anything like it in the past, but that's what these mills are all about when it's all said and done. And what we'd like to do there is to create some green interior amenity space that would be suitable for both the residents of the project and some of the commercial space also fronts on that space as well. We've had, since the submission to the city for this application, we've had at least one meeting with the historic board. We've received a couple of comments. One of the current plan changes that we will be contemplating to satisfy the board is that we were trying initially to create a little bit of a green hedgerow along this side of the asphalt for the existing building, and their preference is not to have any additional landscaping there and turn that into a sidewalk area. So that landscaping shrub line would be coming out in lieu of a sidewalk to then connect to the Riverwalk. And then the plantings that are inside the courtyard will be, in terms of any trees that are there, are going to be modest. They'll have to be in planters to both satisfy the conditions of the Historic Board and the Park Service. So very consistent. We're going to get in there. We're going to clean things up. We're going to put the final coating of asphalt on the entry courtyard, stripe it properly, sign it properly to the satisfaction of the fire department as well as the Historic Board, and finish this project in the way that everyone envisioned in the beginning. Thank you.
Richard, may I just ask you one question again?
Yes, sir.
Could you just show us again where that interior parking will be? Right here, yeah.
The four new spaces will be parallel spaces along the left or the south side of that entry courtyard, and the fire lane will then be the remaining 18 feet.
And those are just set up for temporary parking, correct?
That's correct.
Because I believe at the last meeting, was it back in '04, you said, Mr. Flynn? We had a lot of discussion on the fact of people, they get permission to park in the garage, but it's a distance away. Someone's going to pull up, want to drop off some groceries, do some shopping, that at least it was an area that they could pull their car up, park there for whatever time period you allocated for, therefore they can bring their stuff in, do that, and then bring their car back.
That is the intention. We also understand that on the south side of the Mill 3-4 building, there is a number of cars that seem to be there for longer than interim periods as well. And part of what we'll be doing in the completion of this project is signing everything properly so that everyone knows that those areas are not for parking and they're just for drop-off.
Like I said, at the last meeting, we had a lot of discussion saying, you do need some parking for the people to drop their belongings off, get in the house, come out and move it. We have other developments downtown who don't have that. As a result, they bring their groceries, come in, and they get ticketed. I mean, it's very clear, the police department saying, ticket everybody, if they don't like it, appeal it. That's the message that's coming from the superintendent. But here, it's nice to see the people because to ask people, to go to the garage where you have the parking that's allowed by the city regulations, to bring, make 2 or 3 trips, and really doesn't work. They're going to park in places they don't belong. So I know we spent a lot of time on that. I'm glad to see that parking space is back there for that purpose. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm glad you
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I just want to point out, we also had a meeting with the city engineer to discuss this, and we have no problem with her comments that was submitted with the package. And as Dick said, we've had some preliminary meetings with Historic, and one of the things they want done is the large piece of equipment on top of the roof to be removed, which is going to be done.
That is going to be relocated.
It's going to be relocated, correct.
That's come up. Oh, yeah.
But it's basically, the architectural is basically what was approved back in 2004, and it should be a great project for the city.
Does anybody else want to speak on behalf of the applicant before I turn it
I
over to
think
the public?
that's it.
Okay. Anybody want to speak in favor of this project?
Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, for the record, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. This is a great project. It's long overdue to be completed, and it will definitely, it's in the interest of the city, it's in the interest of historic preservation, national park, that it be unanimously approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
Can I just make a few?
Sure. Right after this gentleman, go ahead. Yep, absolutely. Everybody gets to speak.
Yeah, my name is Michael Bauer. I am one of the condo owners and residents in the existing development. I will go where they didn't go and say that interior courtyard is pretty ugly. I would very much like to see the improvements they're proposing. Those 4 parking spaces you were mentioning are already in place and being used as proposed. I very much want to see this project finished. I'd like to see more people in that building. I'd like to see that big cavernous empty space just down the hall from me filled. I'd like to see this one go. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your input. Thank you. Yes, sir, if you would.
Yes, for the record, my name is John Flynn. I'm in Unit 107, and I have been at the Boot Mills about 3 years now, and I moved back here from Colorado. I'm a Massachusetts resident, or I was born here anyway, and I've really enjoyed living in the city of Lowell, but I regret to say that my time at Boot Mills has been less than stellar. I live in a corner unit adjacent to a stairwell that is used frequently by most of the residents. And I think I have some structural issues going on in my place, because you're looking at a man that has not had a good night's sleep in 3 years due to the issues that are going on in my place. I have addressed this with, Ed Barry initially, the developer, and he said he couldn't do much about my concerns. But the parking area down below initially was kind of a free-for-all. There were people parking there all weekend long, and my bedroom happens to be right above where a lot of people were parking. So it was nice to see that issue taken care of by our condo board and whoever else was involved in getting that taken care of. The issues that are going on now, I'd like to see not worsen any, and yet with the proposal for 77 more units, and the fact that the new residents may be using the very traffic way that is being used now, meaning the stairwell adjacent to my unit. When I say disturbing, my whole unit trembles, such as an earthquake, when people walk briskly down the hall. So I have seen a couple of attorneys about this, and I'm just at a point tonight. I want to thank you for the invitation to come here and just express my concerns. I, too, would love to see this project developed in the most professional way, and try to see if I can become a more satisfied resident at Boot Mills, and what could be done to make that the case. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anybody want to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition, hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. At this point in time, any board members have any questions, comments, concerns?
I have.
Mr. Lockhart?
Have you had any discussion with the fire department, particularly relative to the identification of the fire lane that's identified on your plan?
I don't think.
There is no approval sheet in here from them.
No, there isn't.
No, I just, it's obviously very important. Oh, all right, Aaron.
I can address that to a limited degree, at least. We have regular internal project review meetings with city departments, and we have reviewed this project with the fire department, Captain Casey, who had noted that, the key element, which the board may remember at the original approval, was that there was the 18-foot fire lane, in which necessitated the parallel parking on the south, or along the north side of the south building on the courtyard. So they've seen that the plans show that that's the intent, and as long as that's what's built, they're comfortable with that as access.
That's the fire lane, which we're willing to mark, but we want to get the approval from the historic board as to how they want it marked.
I can appreciate it, yeah. That's all I
So you can get a shot at him at the store board, too.
Yeah, we can do that. We will, too.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay. Any other board members, comments, questions? Mr. Gentleman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I was just wondering if there are plans, so I think it's a great idea, great project, let's go. But I wonder if there are plans to do anything to diminish disturbance of existing residents during construction and things like that.
I'll let the builder.
I would answer that in two ways. First, we'll have a plan in place to minimize noise. Of course, there'll be regular hours in conjunction, at a minimum, with the Lowell, the city of Lowell requirements, and they might even be narrowed further than that. And secondly, since you can't predict everything, we'll be having regular meetings with the existing condo association. So, we already do have regular meetings, but we'll have regular meetings during construction so that we can make sure we're not missing something and concerns can be raised right away. It's, you know, it's going to be tricky for a year because there are 39 residents in the building. The good news is they're in one quadrant of the building, and we'll be working in the other three of the four quadrants of the building. So to some degree, we'll be able to separate it. But at the end of the day, it'll be noisy, and we'll do our best to make sure that it's, you know, minimized for those folks.
Yeah, I think, you know, as maybe a condition of this approval, we you know, require you to meet with the existing residents, as you said you would, and make sure you have, you know, restrict your hours so that you're not there at, you know, 1 in the morning or something crazy, doing some work. And I wonder, you know, you probably know no connection, but, you know, this gentleman brought up an issue in his unit, and I'm wondering if, do you guys have anything to do with that? Is that something you can?
We will going forward, and I'm making notes because we've already had dozens of comments like that from residents. You know, the bottom line is a project was stopped a fourth of the way through, and so although 39 units were issued C of Os because they were legitimate units, the building itself is half finished, and there's a lot of stuff that was left that shouldn't have been left done because the developer went bankrupt, and that's a great example. The stairway, I wasn't aware of that, but you also have the folks who are on the end of the block of 39. They have water leaks. They have water problems, water coming into the building, noise issues. Everybody's favorite public utility, or not public utility, privately owned. Water company in Lowell has the rights to troop through the lobby to their turbine, and that thing is, when it goes on, it was apparently, when they built this project, the thought was that it wasn't going to go on. Now they're using it, and it's there's other residents whose lives are nightmares right now when that thing goes on. I don't think it goes on all the time, but when it goes on, they know it, and I don't think they can sleep. So we'll address all that as part of our construction as best we can. To the limits of, you know, engineering.
Okay, so maybe the condition would be to meet with the residents and to restrict the construction so that it doesn't become overly overbearing on them, as well as maybe try to address existing construction-related issues.
Oh, that's all perfectly fine, as long as there's a reasonableness test that we would be doing that anyway, so that's great.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing I should have mentioned earlier, we did receive a letter tonight from Peter Sellett, the acting superintendent from the Lowell National Historic Park, saying that they were in favor of the project and they think it'll help benefit the city of Lowell. And as I said, the Lowell National Historic Park has worked closely with this development team for some time, and we are pleased with the result of the efforts. The action of the board will keep a key step in advancing the project, and we strongly encourage favorable consideration on this application. So that will go in our file. Any other board members have any comments? Mr. Fischert?
Mr. Chairman, I don't really, my biggest concern was the fire lane, and I think we've discussed that adequately and feel confident, obviously, that will be addressed. I was actually at the board meeting, although I didn't serve on the board at the time, when there was a great deal of discussion regarding the parking spaces, and I certainly remember that. It certainly was it seems like a practical, useful addition to the project. Driving through there, I was happy to see the number of fire hydrants that were located within. I guess I hadn't really given that much thought before, as you go through the maze of buildings, and there are hydrants within the complex. So that was my biggest concern with with that layout, and you've adequately addressed the trash situation, which engineering had commented on. And I'm assuming there is no plan to have to put outside dumpsters, and that that should be handled internally?
Internally, right.
Sure. Okay.
They're picked up 3 times a week.
Sure, great. Yep. And I have no further comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Attorney Claremont?
Really no questions. I do recall it coming before us the last go-around, and it was a great project then. I think it's a great project now.
Well, I think you've got a good company to come in and finish it. I think everyone knows what Wind Development has done in the city. I mean, they did the other mill on the other side, and they've done Jackson Street. And John seems to be very involved in it. So I think you've got people in there. They've made a commitment to the city too, based on prior financial deals, it's going to be beneficial to all of us as taxpayers.
Very happy to see it move forward, so that's my only comment.
Any further comments? If not, we entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for site plan approval of two conditions. One, to meet with the residents that are there to try to address their concerns. And the second one is to continue to work with the fire department to give them safe access to the site.
Okay, motion's made, and do we have a second?
Second.
In second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. So the project is approved, 5 in favor and none against.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you very much.
Nice holiday, everybody.
Tell Jerry his kickoff time with the continue.
Motion to continue.
Yeah, right. Kick off town.
I think it's kickoff time, isn't it, gentlemen?
Should have kicked off. They probably scored by now, yeah.
Okay, moving along, new business, we have a site plan approval amendment. This is Lowell General Hospital. The planning board review a request for Lowell General Hospital to amend the site plan approved during the July 19th, 2010 planning board meeting and amended November 15th, 2010 for an expansion project for the campus located at 295 Varnum Ave. The current amendment request includes the construction of a temporary parking area with approximately 65 parking spaces west of the existing employee parking lot. The parking area is proposed as crushed stone and includes expansion of an existing stormwater retention basin. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jerry Foley from Watermark, 175 Cabot Street, Lowell, Mass. We're back here before you for a minor revision to the approved site plan as stated. What we'd like to do is put in some temporary parking to handle a pinch that we're currently getting at the site as a result of a number of factors, one of them being the staging area occupying 74 previously occupied parking spaces. The other one is really just some growth that the hospital's noticed through new programs and additional nurses, I guess, coming for training to the hospital. By my count, we lost 74 spaces with the parking lot over here and at the back of the cancer center for the staging purposes and for the trailers. For a while, we had the trailer space, but because we were occupying the laundry building, but now the laundry building's coming down, so now we have trailers out there. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to temporarily extend this westernmost parking lot here, approximately 64 feet wide by 400 feet long. That would accommodate 65 more spaces. We'd like to do that with 4 inches of gravel. The first order of business would be to enlarge the detention basin, which is located on the southerly end of the existing parking lot to accommodate the additional flow. And then what we would do is we would grade it so that it works with the existing parking lot to go towards the detention basin. Just to get you reoriented, Varnum Avenue, you'd be off to your right out here. The back will be over here, and the hospital proper would be up here at the top. So this is the outline of the existing parking area that we're talking about, and this would be the proposed gravel area right here. Currently, there's a big earthen berm along this edge. You'd basically be pushing that to the west to create enough space for this row of parking. It'll be a double bay most likely. Because it's gravel, it won't be striped obviously, so there'll have to be somebody out there making sure people are behaving with the way they park. This parking lot here currently slopes in this direction and then goes down here to the detention pond, would slope this back in this direction, so it would be like a swale right along here so that everything goes in there. In an effort to be even more conservative, we've designed the retention basin to retain 100% of the 100-year storm. So there's no control outlet. There's whatever comes in stays there. Now, obviously, we know there'll be some infiltration with any system because the soils out there are very good. But we've designed this thing to hold everything. And even though we have to go through the HydroCAD process and do the drainage calculations, we've had a number of pretty good storms since we started this project. And I don't think I've ever seen water come up more than 2 feet in that retention basin. But when you do the math and you plug it into the formulas and the programs, it comes out that it has to be that size. So that's what we have before you tonight for your consideration. With me tonight is Bill Charette, who is the Director of Facilities, and Vinny Holland, who is the owner's project manager, working on the Legacy project. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak on behalf of the applicant before we turn it over to the public?
Your call.
My name is Bill Shred. I'm the Director of Facilities at Lowell General Hospital. One of the problems we're fighting with every single day with the security department is trying to control the parking out there. This whole area is where all the employees are parking and the contractors. And with the winter coming, there's days that we have 1 or 2 spots out there. So we were really up against the wall on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? For the applicant, no? Anybody want to speak in favor of the project? Could get the 3 for.
Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, I'm back again. Mark Owen, 58 Oakland Street. I spoke on this back a year ago, and to be consistent, I'm in favor of this and urge that the planning board vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in favor of the site plan amendment? Anybody else in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anybody like to speak in opposition? Anybody in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Any questions of the planning board members?
I just have 2 questions.
Attorney Claremont?
When the project is completed, what's going to happen with the temporary lot?
I don't have a definitive answer from the hospital on that yet, but at this point in time, it could be reclaimed. There is additional parking in the master plan that's been approved, but it's not in that particular location. So the options, I guess, open would be to either reclaim it, come back for site plan approval, perhaps to make it permanent parking, or to extend the parking somewhere else according to the master plan that's been approved.
And do you need to review that with the city engineer because of the drainage?
We submitted the drainage to the planning board. I'm not sure, Aaron, if that goes to them directly.
Yeah, so a copy of the stormwater and drainage calculations has been distributed to the city engineer, but
She'll review it.
It's been a week, so she hasn't had a chance to review it yet.
Mr. Fischett, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I guess just a few comments. One of the concerns was minimizing the impact to the surrounding neighborhood with a large project such as this. And I know in the past, matter of fact, they were busing employees from another location. So certainly, I think, given the situation, I think it's important to be able to have the capability to handle the parking on site. So I think, obviously, from that perspective, it's an important amendment, given the size and the scope of the project taking place up there. So from that perspective, certainly I fully support the amendment. Just one other question is, would this any reason to go to conservation on this at all?
No, there are no wetlands within 100 feet of the
wetlands?
proposed work.
Okay, all right, good. No further comments, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is going to be for employees only?
I believe that is correct, because we have the construction one that was approved with the part of the site plan, and that's fully occupied with construction workers. So it's my understanding this is just employees.
We've had about 350 employees in the last 5 years here. That's one of the reasons why we have to keep coming back here.
That's a good thing. And what's to the underneath that?
In this
to the
direction?
south, I guess, of your property.
Down here?
Yeah.
There's a tree line. Right now, it's kind of open from the previous work. When they did the construction for this parking lot, they cleared out, they put the excess material over here. So what we need to do is just push that down, and there'll probably be some excess material, that's gonna have to be taken off site or stockpiled temporarily, maybe used for the final construction.
But I mean, on the other side of your property line, what's there?
Oh, those are residences. Actually, look, the down towards Bottom Avenue is the Solomon Mental Health right here.
Right.
Right there. And then we have residential's back here.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Rich, any questions?
No, my question has been answered. I'm in favor of what I say.
Do you have to do any temporary lighting or anything for the lot, or do you have something existing there, or?
Actually, there's existing lighting, and it happens to be in a pretty good place. It's right along this edge of the parking, right here.
So you already have it, which is.
Yeah, so
good
it's
for you.
already there.
Good.
That works.
Aaron, any comments from Division of Planning and Development?
I think actually the board addressed any good thoughts or concerns we had, and mostly had to do with the temporary nature of the parking lot. And so, the board retaining the opportunity to review this in the future after the parking lot's no longer used on a temporary basis, I think would be adequate.
So I guess the next question would be, what's temporary?
Another good question. We were anticipating at this point probably late spring, early fall.
Okay.
I mean, late spring, early summer, I think. Is that correct?
Is the job, it's basically in 3 phases right now, Vinnie? The job's in about 3 phases right now, and probably next June, the first phase, but we're actually pushing the contractor to try and move that up 30 days, so hopefully in May, the first phase of the project will be done. And as we wean down, some of the contractors will be leaving, but we're also gonna be renovating some of the vacated space as well, so we're gonna have contractors on the site for a while.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? No.
I tour that site 3 times a week, because it's got the latest FedEx pickup in the area, so I'm up there all the time. It's going pretty well up there.
Yeah, it is. I'm up there a lot.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve this amendment to the original site plan.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Can we just amend that with approval by the city engineer once she
Yes,
takes a look at the
subject to approval by the city engineer.
Is that okay with the amendment, Mr. Fischett?
Yes.
For the second?
Yep.
Okay. So we do have a motion made and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. The matter for the site plan amendment approval has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I'd like to thank the DPD for helping us with this.
I'm going to jump over to other business and come back to the meeting, elections later. Notices from abutting towns. I'd like to make a motion, we place those on file.
So moved.
We do have some ZBA notices, and I know this evening, Division of Planning and Development had the opportunity to give us some comments on those. So we do have those that were handed to us tonight to go along with some of the requests from the ZBA matters. And as indicated, these are matters that are going before the Zoning Board of Appeals, which are scheduled for November 28th at 6:30 PM here in the City Council chambers, and becomes before us recommendation body only. The first matter is for a special permit telecommunication for Sprint PCS, and it's located at 40 Princeton Boulevard, and to replace 6 existing antennas and 6 new antennas, add 9 radio heads, and replace equipment cabinets in the building's basement with new equipment. I believe this is on top of the Greek church, and it's an upgrade only, I believe, is what they're requesting. Do we have the one, the comments here? I just know how to go
Is this on
home.
40 Princeton?
Yeah, 40 Princeton. We do have a comment here from Division Plan Development from Joe, our Assistant Planner. I believe, so these comments obviously go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, is what they will have for their public hearing, right? So we're getting a copy of what you submit to them, Joe?
That's correct. The number of Sprint comments that you have before you are for basically a large upgrade they're doing for their latest technology. So this is at a number of their existing sites.
So this is already an existing one, it's on top of the church, and it's looking for just an upgrade only, so. Any questions, comments from the board?
In your comments, you indicate the submission does not include coverage maps to indicate level of service applicant is seeking for their network. They need to supply that, do they not, before they can get approval, or at this point, it's not ready for approval, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's essentially what that comment's meant to address, is that they need to submit that. But they're arguing that because it's submitted to cover the 4G service, is that there's no coverage right now in the city for right now.
It's tricky.
So does that sound right to you, Joe? And you know, they can
So are they not
prepare
going
them.
to supply the maps based upon that?
They have in the past. It wasn't. I can't remember the last carrier was right off the top of my head. It was T-Mobile.
AT&T.
AT&T. Thank you. I went out of 4. But AT&T, they did the exact same thing. They submitted the coverage maps pretty quickly after that.
So that's a whole new setup to do 4G. They need, if they have 3G, let's say they need a different setup, a different antenna to supply 4G?
Yeah, it's the pieces that they're referencing, and there's the radio heads and antennas and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's an upgrade.
So we're looking at, excuse me, Mr. Clemmer, were you done?
No, I'm done, sorry.
We're looking at upgrades to existing antennas.
Correct.
So under that circumstance, Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, chair votes yes, recommendation. The next matter is for special permit telecommunications, and this is print TCS, and this is on 900 Chelmsford Street, which is the top of Cross Point. This is to add 2 additional antennas, 9 radio head units, and 1 BTS cabinet at ground with lease area pursuant to section 7.6. And we do have a memo here from Joe as well on that matter, which is addressed to Mr. Bailey in the zoning board of appeal.
Well, on top of Cross Point is where we'd like to see these things go, right, and not in the middle of somebody's neighborhood. So I would make a motion that we recommend approval.
I'll second that as well.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. The next matter is 179 Gorham Street, and this is to add 1 additional antenna to an existing array, 12 radio head units, and replace 1 BTS cabinet in pursuant to 7.6, and I believe this is on, what, the top of the Lowell Housing Authority, the Bishop Markham Village?
Bishop Markham.
Right. And I think we have a letter here from Joe in regards to that too, so.
Looks like they're fighting you on the issue of providing the coverage maps on all of these, right?
I'd make a motion to approval with the recommendations of, from Joe, our assistant planner.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The recommendation is approval with communication. The next matter is for Richard Prue, 42 Holliston Street, to construct an addition without the proper rear yard setback pursuant to section 5.1. He wants to add a 20 by 19 addition, and I think he only, if he does that, he's kind of short in the back. I think he will come within 6 feet, I think, of the property line. He does have some neighbors signed off, but I don't know if he has the neighbor to the rear signed off. Yeah, it looks like he will.
6.5 feet, yeah.
Yeah, the rear. I think he has
the rear.
a couple of neighbors signed off, but I don't think he has the rear neighbor, which would be affected the most.
No, they're listed here.
He has a couple of signatures.
I got this.
I did have a brief narrative here. If you'd like to, He's asking for 20 by 19 addition to rear the man child. Lived there since '03. Adding this room not only adds to my living space, but also in a public good for the neighborhood as well. He's asking for desired relief and feel there's no substantial detriment to public good. He has a couple of pictures in the packet.
The abutting neighbor to the rear is not signed off.
No, I mean,
He's got 3 of the 4.
yeah, I mean, he needs
Yeah, 3 of the 4.
25 feet to the rear, and you only have 6.
6.5, that's not much.
Yeah, that's 6.5. I think it'd be too tight to the neighbor behind him, and I'd make a motion to deny.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to deny. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
The next matter is for Town and Country Nursing Home on 259 Baldwin Street to extend an existing non-conforming structure and maintain an extension of the existing non-conforming use licensed healthcare facility in a single-family zone. So it's already existing there, and it looks like they want to add to it. And did you guys have a chance to take a look at this? I saw a lot of the plans here, but I didn't get a, Joe, if you could?
Yeah, this is actually something where the additions are actually already put in place and already have certificates of occupancy for it. And
I thought I read something to that effect.
yeah, and as the zoning analysis was done for the property, it was something that we actually saw that has to be cleaned up. It's something that should have been done before.
And it's not a setback issue, it's just that it's a pre-existing non-conforming use.
Correct.
I'd make a motion, recommend approval on that.
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's it. The next matter is for a special permit for signs. This is Barlow Signs located at 1201 Bridge Street for internally illuminated wall sign for the unit indicated per plan submitted per 6/3. Did we have a chance to review this, either through the assistant planner for the signs, or anybody else from DPD have a chance to look at it?
We haven't had a chance to get comments from the design planner, Rachel, who's, as you know, typically prepares those on behalf of DPD. And I think the essence of what the petitioner's trying to do, correct me if I'm wrong here, Joe, is kind of get the special permit for internal illumination for all the properties in the strip mall. So they don't come back at, kind of each single, as they fill the spaces one at a time. So we don't necessarily have the specific designs for each of the signs. It's more of kind of, we're going to have tenants in these spaces. We're going to be proposing that they have internal illumination. They just like to get it done.
Would they be getting the recommendation prior to the ZBA meeting?
Yeah, well, we're going to try to get that before the meeting. It's our goal typically. I think we'll be able to get that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we refer to this to our chief design planner for signs.
Second.
For recommendation.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the other matter is for a special permit at the Boot Mill, which we did on the public hearing for 130 John Street. So can we make an approval as allowed per our site plan review? I'll
Mr.
make a motion to
Chairman,
that effect.
I'll make a motion that we approve in accordance with the site plan that was approved.
And I'll second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Getting back, so we did the ZBA, notice of the budding town. We have our annual meeting for election of officers this evening. We were supposed to have them in September, but at that time, we had some board members who weren't present, so we postponed it. So tonight, we have positions to be elected include chairperson, vice chair, second vice chair, representative to NEMCOG, representative to Historic Board, and representative to the Green Building Commission. So I'll start off with, for the chairperson.
I'd make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to reappoint you as a chair for another term.
I'll
Second.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Next would be for vice chairperson.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Attorney Claremont to that slot.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Second vice chair. I'd make a motion to Mr. Richard Lockhart.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Representative to the NIMCOG Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll recommend that we nominate Jerry Fischette to the NIMCOG board.
Second. Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Representative to the Historic Board. I'll make a motion that we do Mr. Richard Lockhart.
Second?
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And representative to the Green Building Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend Stephen Gendron to the Green Commission.
Motion's made and
Second.
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. While we're doing that, we come along, I know Aaron has some information to share with us. She wants to talk to us about the Tanner Street project and looking for a volunteer from the planning board.
Right.
I'll turn it over to you for that.
Right, so I presume that most of the board members are aware of the Tanner Street initiative with James Erickson and Sarah Brown are project managing through the other side of DPD now. And it's essentially, it's a area-wide brownfields planning process that's looking at the Tanner Street area from Plain all the way up to where it reconnects with Hale Street, I believe. So the first part is kind of inventorying, brownfield sites and then coming up with a strategic vision for reusing them and prioritizing and allocating funds so that we can get them back in a higher, better use. The second part of what we've tried to do with that is include the baseline analysis that usually goes in with a redevelopment, urban redevelopment district, like the Acre or the Jam Plan. And if we find that it meets those minimum criteria from DHCD, potentially look at the opportunity of that site becoming a renewal district. So the planning process has been going through with the consultant up to this point, just to collect the existing conditions analysis, and because we're looking at the potential of it becoming a renewal district, there's a lot more detail on a parcel basis, going through and documenting specific land uses and vacancy, and et cetera, et cetera. What they're looking for next is to go through a community advisory committee for the next 6 months, starting in December. And one of the boards that the state actually requires a member to be on the advisory committee is the planning board. The other is the conservation commission. So I wanted to, we talked to Tom about this, the chairman, a little bit about this, and give everybody the opportunity to kind of hear about it. I can answer some questions if you like, but just looking for someone to sit on the advisory committee for the next 6 months. It's a fairly short commitment.
I'll do it.
Okay. We do have a volunteer, Mr. Richard Lockhart. Motion is
I'm
made
interested in
second.
the area. What's
Hurry up, second that motion.
Oh, really? I'm interested.
Yeah, no, very good.
What's the ultimate goal of the area?
Well, that hasn't been
Some kind of a...
that hasn't been acutely defined yet. I mean, that's part of what the public process will be, is to determine exactly what is the best and highest use for that area. To keep in mind, the master plan objectives and goals, which is in part to preserve at least light industrial properties to kind of have a mix of employment opportunities for Lowell residents. Some of the other objectives, as I understand them, are to try to help and reconnect the neighborhoods around it a little bit better, recognizing that the Lowell connector is quite a barrier. So it's trying to weigh a lot of those kinds of those issues, access, the feasibility of light industrial uses, R&D perhaps, and then again trying to better integrate it with the neighborhoods, keeping in mind that the intent, at least at this point, is to have some light industrial type of uses, R&D type of uses. Part of the existing conditions analysis includes a market study. I haven't seen it. I don't know if it's actually completed yet, but it will be part of the first meeting of the advisory committee, so you get a lot of feedback on what was found from the consultant. Are there is light industrial viable there based on access? And, I generally would think it would be because of its access to the connector, but you'll get more details on that. And that's part of what will be worked out in the next 6 months.
That type of zone in this city is shrinking.
Right.
And I think it's part of the master plan, you may be more familiar, is to try to preserve that type of.
That's correct.
I told Aaron,
So, yeah, that's kind of challenging in today's.
when Aaron and I were talking about it, I told him about before about the problem we have with the cleanup there. That was in the bottom of
Yeah,
Tenth Street
the
for
cleanup,
years.
sure.
And all,
Saracen.
yeah, and all that stuff was being trucked up to Buffalo, New York to try to get rid of it, or way upstate New York. And it was just a complete mess. I mean, I remember when they tried to clean it all up and get it out. I was new on the board at the time, they're going through all this stuff, and you're like, oh my God.
Well, it's still doing something though, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
Still remediating.
They will be at that site for at least, I think, 25 to 30 years. That's
it
a
was
long-term
just,
commitment.
the bad part is a mess, you know? and
Yeah,
it's just-
yeah.
So it's good to see there's some initiations being taken care of, I mean, for the whole area.
Yeah, and so, that whole street has a number of other brownfields. So that is actually a Superfund site. That's a site that the EPA has identified that needs to be cleaned up and has a significant amount of contamination. The other properties along there that are identified as brownfield or will be identified as brownfield sites are those that are less challenging to reuse or remediate. Sometimes brownfields you can just cap or make sure you sequester to make sure it's not moving from the site and then just reuse it with an appropriate use. Usually it's not. If you're just capping it, a lot of times it has to be restricted to certain types of uses like light industrial. So it's intended to look at the very least at that area at a holistic manner and approaching the brownfields remediation and redevelopment of the brownfield sites in a strategic way.
I want to make a motion that we accept Richard's willingness to volunteer to sit as a commission member of the board for that Tanner Street site.
Second that.
Thank you, Richard. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any further general correspondences? If not, we can entertain a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting, we have one meeting quickly in December 5th, then we're off for the month of December. Do we have Matty coming in December 5th with
Correct.
Mike Cooney's project up there?
That's right, the CBA's project on Guam
CBA,
Street.
That was in the paper already, yeah.
Is that the only one we have on the 5th?
That's the only thing we have right now. We haven't had any requests, for pre-applications. I believe we included a draft schedule for next year.
Okay.
So if we just want to take a look at that, make sure that we're not,
We'll have that next meeting, right?
I think we included it in the package, but we'll email it around then. I'll make sure we email it out. And,
Chairman, I'll make a motion to adjourn and wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Motion's made, and second? Second. Second, all in favor, say aye. Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.